Welcome back, everyone, for another round of Minecraft Modded. I have my storage system underway. You see how it's kind of mixed up, and I did actually add, where I wasn't going to use the lower row, I did add it just because of keeping things together, like iron, gold, diamond, and emerald all there. I may adjust more later, I'm not sure yet, but this is already covering most of what I got for storage purposes, and it's working fine. I've also run into a problem with the smelting system, that if I go with not only mixing and matching items, but if I do more than 4 stacks at a time, some of it gets hung up in the actual trigger mechanism for distributing. So I've limited to 4 stacks at a time now, which is fine. It's, you know, put 4 stacks in once they've drained, and they're going, you okay to kind of put in some more, but it is still faster than what I had going on and a lot easier. But that's not the big thing today, because the big thing is that I have finally gotten Optifine to work. I tried it at the beginning. It was the first thing I tried. And so many people have said, you need to use Optifine. You need to use Optifine. You need to use Optifine. And I'm like, I did. I tried it. And every time I tried it, every version, game client crashed, wouldn't even open. But finally, thanks to, I guess, 1.16 being out now, and things getting updated in terms of mods for 1.16 compatibility, they updated Optifine at some point so that now the newest version works. So today we're going to look at 3 different shaders. The KUDA Shaders, SEUS Renewed, and Sildur's Vibrant Shaders are the 3 I picked because they were highly recommended through multiple places, and they all have 1.15 support, which is what I'm still rocking because of certain mods. So we're going to take a look at those, and you get to see how they look in different places of my base, even the village, the difference between the shaders. And of course, again, with shaders, make sure your system can handle them. So first up, we have KUDA Shaders. This is kind of nice in terms of the way the lighting works. You can see how everything is done in here, how the lanterns glow for everything. It's not overly blown out here, but it is also not like the biggest change overall in just terms of lighting here. And now we have the SEUS Renewed shader, which there's a couple different options for that. I went with Renewed because it is updated and it was a recommended one. You can see it's much more of a glow effect to the lanterns now. Everything has like a softer kind of glow from the light. You see how much of a difference it has along the walkway in the middle. And honestly, just from this standpoint, there's not a huge difference in terms of frames per second between no shader and these 2 shaders so far. But it's definitely a lot more of a difference in terms of lighting with this shader. And now we have Sildur's Vibrant Shader. This is kind of a blend between the first 2. It's not quite so much of a bloom effect, I would say, in terms of the lanterns, the lighting. It's a lot more evenly lit on everything, but there is that like very warm glow. And in this case, it seems almost a little like it's oversaturated. But I have to say, out of the 3 mods, this is the quickest one, or 3 shaders, this is the quickest one to load in and get up and going. It doesn't take quite as long to load it from the others and go into this. But you see just how much of a mixture it is. It's got that bloomish look to it with the glow. It's not quite as plain as the first one, the KUDA Shaders. Now you can see how interesting everything looks in terms of the lighting outside. It also, with early morning, has kind of a hazy look, a misty kind of look, which is kind of nice, honestly. And you can see the sunrise creeping up over the wall. So it's very nice in terms of the lighting from the sun. There is an effect with the tree limbs, or the tree leaves. You can see how they're moving. The grass is moving. It's very nice. But for me, probably the best part of this is that it's not over the top in terms of the way like the actual theme pack icons look. It has a very nice lighting setup. It's not overpowering, but it also is in some ways kind of a little underwhelming from what I want of a shader. And now here we are with SEUS Renewed. It actually is loading in the terrain a lot faster than the KUDA shaders. You see it's got a little bit more of that bloom effect with the lighting on the ground. There's a little bit of, movement with the grass, the flowers, but not as extreme as the KUDA shaders. And you see it even with the leaves. There's a little bit of movement. It's like a light breeze versus a notable breeze, just a very light breeze going. You see, it actually is loading things a good bit faster. And then when I turn, it finally loads that. You see how quick that loaded in. Now we've got a nice shadow. Again, the lights are, the light from the sun is following it. So it's got a very nice look. This loads quicker in the long run than the KUDA shaders. And now we're here with the Sildur's vibrant shaders. You can see definitely much more vibrant in terms of the lighting. Yes, we've got shadow as stuff starts to load in, but of course we're not getting quite as much because we're out of it. But it's a much more saturated look again. Just like inside, it has a very, almost a high dynamic range look to it. And you can see we have kind of an in-between. We've got some slight movement with the grass, and then some more vibrant, more extreme movement with the grass. And then with the leaves, we got more of that extreme movement coupled with a little bit of pausing there where it slows down a bit. So it's kind of, I would say this is kind of the middle ground shader of the three, where the first, it sits kind of right between how the first two look. It's a little bit more overdone in terms of saturation, but it doesn't have quite the, it's not quite as extreme as some of the others. It's definitely very bright feeling. So one critical element that a lot of people look for in shaders is, of course, water quality. So we're back with the KUDA shaders, and you see it's not super clear when you're looking at distance. It's got a nice reflection to it, but it's got clarity through the water when you're up close, and you can see a little bit there, but the reflection gets in the way. So it's got a very nice realistic type blend because, if it was clear water, you're going to see good reflections, and that's going to obscure a little bit of the stuff in the distance. And you see with the SEUS Renewed, we've got a nice rippling effect. We've got some of the reflectivity in the distance, but we do have a little bit more of a visible clarity to it in the distance. It also looks more clear, like there's not any real artifacting to the water. There's no bubbles, anything like that showing. It's just a very clear pool of water, almost eerily clear, if you ask me. And now we're looking at the Sildur's vibrant shaders, which again is kind of like showing itself to be a middle ground between the other two. We have a bit of that clarity of the water, the rippling effect, but it's much more pronounced in the distance with the rippling effect. You also see that the reflections are much more pronounced in the distance than with the SEUS Renewed, but not quite as far on it as the KUDA shaders have done it. And of course, what look at different shaders would be complete without a stroll through the village to see how everything looks. This is the KUDA shaders again, which is the one outside of lighting effects feels the most normal to me in terms of how everything looks. A little bit, again, the lanterns a lot closer to the original look as just a little bit of glow. Of course, we have a very nice element of sunlight that comes in through openings. So it's got a nice softer feel to it. I'm not 100% sure about the way that corner's handled, but it looks nice. Nice shadows, a nice feel with everything in terms of the lighting. But it goes back to being the most plain of the three shader packs, in my opinion, in terms of how close it is to original. And that's very nice in the way, the indoor lighting works with open areas and the windows. So with SEUS Renewed, we have a similar look, but it's much more pronounced between the shadows and the lit areas. You also see we have a much more pronounced lighting setup, even with the underside there. We come in. It's much more of a softer glow, less of that sunlight effect from outside. So we still have a nice view of outside. We come up here, we've got this. It's just not as much of the outside light being portrayed inside. That could be a good thing or a bad thing for you. You might want more of that natural sunlight look to it. To me, the windows are so small, it shouldn't be as well lit as it was in the KUDA shaders in some of those places. Especially like right here where we just have this little bit. I can understand like the light, how it is here, but not really lighting up much further back. And then this area, same thing. Good bit of light right here, but it's not just completely washing over everything at the back. We see a much better balance with the actual lanterns. And again, the lanterns are close to the original look. No shaders, but we got a nice glow. It just does have somewhat of that blown out look, and we got a nice little look right there with the window. And now we have, of course, the final one, Sildur's Vibrant mod, which of course we're getting later in the day, but you can see how much of a difference just the torches make to the area and how bright it feels. There's more of a bright point for each torch. They stand out so much more in this one. Again, going with that whole feel of almost being oversaturated in a way. We have a similar kind of glow. And you see, I actually came in and it was a little darker and then they brighten up more. So definitely an interesting effect there. We come up here, we got the torches. It's nice, again, being a little bit of that nice glow, but it also kind of feels with this mod a little blown out. But yeah, it looks good inside. Honestly, this is the one that to me the torches stand out so much with. That it's just so much of a like, hey, here they are. You see that nice little haziness to the distance, even here in the village happening. It just has a very nice little hazy effect to the distance. And we got a nice moonrise coming up, and you can see just how much nicer it looks. And so now we're back with the KUDA shaders, the most vanilla looking of the ones in terms of most elements of the game. You see how much of a difference the lighting makes in terms of the distance there. This is also probably the slower one in the end in terms of how fast everything renders in terms of distance items. But we see a big difference in terms of how vibrant the village looks in the distance, but you can see just how much more embellished the lighting effect, the rippling effect of the water is, both down here and even next to the village. You could really see the ripples of the water coming through, which is possibly nice if you want that realistic water effect, but the rest of it feels a little underdone in comparison to the water for my taste. So now you can see a very notable difference between the KUDA shaders and SEUS Renewed. This is, again, one that feels a little bit more of the over the top in most cases, and we've got shooting stars. I think that's what that was in the distance. You can also see how much more, shooting stars. You see how much brighter everything looks in terms of the lighting in the distance. We actually have a really notable village. It stands out, and the water, we can still see ripples to it. You can still see the ripples there. You can still kind of see them in the distance, mainly from the reflection of the lights. It feels a lot more balanced in this one compared to the first mod, the KUDA shaders, or first shader set, KUDA shaders. This just feels a little bit more balanced in terms of how everything looks, and you can see how much faster it loads in the distance compared to the KUDA shaders. Honestly, between the two, just those, I would pick this one over KUDA shaders because it's definitely faster loading. It works better, and it's just the lighting stands out a lot more. In some cases, like right there, it kind of feels blown out a little bit, but it does work a lot better overall. And now, honestly, this is my favorite one out of all this testing, Sildur's Vibrant shaders. This is the best of both. It's not overly done and blown out in terms of the lighting right now. You can see how it's kind of got a nice blend between them. You see a little bit of the ripples in the water, but because there's no lights around there, because it's not a super bright moon just perfectly placed. We're not seeing it show up that much, but we've got a nice bit of moonlight showing. When you look at it like this, that light there in the SEUS Renewed is way brighter. It doesn't seem as saturated looking, but it's definitely a lot more vibrant with the SEUS Renewed mod, and not vibrant in a good way, but like a really blown out look from a distance. You can see just how much of an effect it has there. Much better effect if you don't want a really dark shadow. It seems with the moon, it works a little bit better with this one, where it's not quite so darkened in the distance. So the SEUS Renewed and the Sildur Shader, or Sildur Vibrant shader, are the two that are the best ones in my opinion. And honestly, I'm at the point of just doing a coin toss between them to decide which one I want to stick with. So tell you what, why don't you leave me a comment below and let me know which one you like best. Of these three, which one do you think looked the best overall? Post in a comment below. We'll see what everybody thinks. And of course, if you want to download any of them, links in the description below for all three of these. Plus, there's the Optifine link below if you happen to need that too. Again, it just finally worked with this newest update to it whenever they released that recently, and didn't crash my game client. So sometimes you just have to wait for them to get things set quite right for it to work with your particular instance, which is why I like mods. But yeah, that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, if you got something out of this, if you've been looking for a good shader, you didn't know about these, and you found one you like, hit that like button. Helps me out. And of course, leave a comment. Let me know which one you like best, which one you think is the best looking one overall. Let's see what everybody says about that. And of course, hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Spicy. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to keep it spicy this week, and I'll see you in the next video.